Well, actually, you are the center of your universe. Just like I am the center of my universe, and Peggy is the center of her universe, and Samuel is the center of his universe. So for a moment, forget everything else we ever learned or thought. We are the center of our universe. Now for another moment, imagine that your commitment is to live in the known part of your universe. In everything you know about everything, your commitment is to live in that known part of your universe. Now that might be a big commitment or a smaller commitment. I don't know what your known universe looks like, but for me, I live in Wilmington. So this is my universe. I used to live in Hawaii, but this is my universe now. I went to Florida last week to teach a class, but this is my universe now because I came back. So physically, emotionally, spiritually, I have a definition of my known universe. Emotionally, I'm used to having feelings, a certain amount of feelings, and that amount is familiar. I am familiar with a little bit of sadness, a little bit of joy, and a little bit of anger. I'm familiar with those. And when it comes to spirituality, well, I believe that I have, this much faith in God. Because this is what I know based on the evidence, based on the experience, based on what I have seen with my eyes. So when we have this commitment to only live in our known universe, well then, quite frankly, we're not available to all of the goodness that God has to offer. Because part of what God has to offer and what's available is in our unknown universe. And when we have this commitment to only live in our known universe, we're actually living in a static, fixed way. And really, when we look at science, what we're doing is we're actually committing to getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because science tells us that the universe is always expanding. So from a relative perspective, if we think we're being the same, we're actually committed to being smaller. Science says that the universe expands at a rate of 42 miles per second per megaparsec. Now, a megaparsec is 3 billion light years, give or take. So the universe is always expanding faster than the speed of light at a rate called the Hubble constant. Now I think it's oxymoronic that the Hubble constant is called a constant when it's always expanding, but that's science for you. Right? So we're always in this ever-expanding universe. What if? What if instead of a fixed state, a fixed mindset, we chose to have a growth mindset? Stanford University professor Carol Dweck says this: why waste time proving over and over how great you are when you could be getting better? Why hide deficiencies instead of overcoming them? Why look for friends or partners who will just shore up your self-esteem instead of the ones who will also challenge you to grow? And why seek out the tried and true instead of experiences that will stretch you? The passion for stretching yourself and sticking to it, even or especially when it's not going well, is the hallmark of the growth mindset. This is the mindset that allows people to thrive during some of the most challenging times in their lives. So it's actually a choice. A fixed mindset believes in an either or. A fixed mindset says you were either born with this gift or you weren't. You were either born with this talent or you weren't. Where a growth mindset says anything that you want to achieve, you can. All you have to do is work for it. A fixed mindset is all about doing things the same because that's the way you can get confidence in yourself. A growth mindset is about trying new things, about venturing into the unfamiliar so that you can actually have bigger experiences of your own self. Now, I freely admit that I have a fixed mindset about golf. I know there are many peeps in this congregation who like golf. I've seen your pictures on Facebook. I see how much you love golf and love to be with each other when you play golf. But only one time in my entire life did I have a desire to play golf. And that's because I was sitting next to this gorgeous guy in 9th grade geometry who was the captain of the golf team. So I went home and I begged my mother, please, 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 I want to take golf lessons. I want to play golf. I want to be a great golfer. I want to, just be like him and hang out with him and get attention from him, because I figured my sourcing, my good and my attractiveness came from my ability to play golf. And after 3 lessons, I realized I was a failure at golf, and I quit. I just quit because I had this mindset that I would never be good at it, and now I really don't have an interest in golf, although it may be very fun. But that's an example of how we can allow a fixed mindset not serve our highest and best. A growth mindset celebrates failures. A fixed mindset considers them the end of the world. So a growth mindset celebrating the opportunity to learn from experiences, but the opportunity to learn from what may be considered a failure and sticking through it, and even when times get tough, are like Colonel Sanders, who when he decided he had this really great chicken recipe, he started making sales calls. He made 1,008 sales calls before he got somebody to say yes to his chicken recipe. And now there are almost 19,000 franchises in 118 countries around the world, and each franchise earns about $800,000 a year. His commitment to having a growth mindset served him in becoming a huge success. So having a fixed mindset leads to contraction, where having a growth mindset leads to expansion. Yes? Okay, here's the recap. A fixed mindset is all about the outcome. It's all about something out there. Stay within our comfort zone. Don't go outside of the comfort zone because we might not succeed there. Stay where we're comfortable. We have a need to prove our intelligence or talent because we think that's all we have, and that's the only thing that's of value. And then reacting to mistakes as failure is Growth mindset is all about the process. We view new tasks as opportunities to learn. We pick tasks that challenges us, and we accept that mistakes might happen. So growth, big, emergence, fixed, small, contracted. Eric Butterworth, who's one of the greatest Unity writers of all time, says, God can only do for you what God can do through you. Oh, yeah. So that says something about our mindset. That says something about the consciousness which we choose to immerse ourselves in. God's goodness is everywhere present, but we're only going to experience it if we bring it through us. We're only going to experience those edges going all the way to the edges of our imagination if we choose and take action from a growth mindset, from a growth consciousness. Charles Fillmore says it this way: God only does what man says he shall do. God is our servant. Oh, that's kind of audacious. But Unity is audacious. We believe, Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, believed that the Bible was the ultimate authority, and that's why he puts a capital H with that, he. But God is our servant. It's up to us. The choice and the action we take is where we command God to show up in our lives. God is the idea of love. God is the idea of power. God is the idea of wisdom, of strength, of faith. Charles Fillmore also says this: these ideas are potential forces waiting to be set in motion through proper formative vehicles. We are the proper formative vehicles. We are what set God in motion. We are what invites God from being the known to the unknown, all the way to the edges. I looked up what it really meant to live life on the edge, and this is what I found. Having the type of life in which you are involved in exciting or dangerous activities. You know, I think the word dangerous was put in there by somebody who had a fixed mindset. Exciting, I certainly resonate with. And you know how when you go and you look up something and it gives you the definition, then it gives you the example? So the sentence that this would be used in as an example is people who often live on the edge don't live to be 60. Wrong. There are plenty of people in this room who live on the edge, and they're more than 60. One of the masters that I know of living on the edge just had his 71st birthday, and that's Gay Hendricks. And the way Gay Hendricks assures himself that he is always living on the edge is by asking big questions. Questions that come from his heart. Questions that come from his spirit. Questions that come from his whole life. Questions that aren't easy to answer. Not the kind of questions your mother asked you when she said, "Do you have to keep making that noise? Do you have to keep playing that game?" Because those are not really questions. Those are statements disguised as questions. Big questions are like this. How can I extend the periods of contentment in my life? How can I expand my ability to be happy more of the time? And how can I welcome more love in my life? I don't know if you've ever seen a chef make crepes. You know, you mix the batter, you chill it, you have to wait a little while, but when you pour it into the hot pan, it starts out in the middle. It starts in the center. That batter then moves outward toward the edges. And if it's not moving fast enough, then the chef picks up the pan and tilts it this way and that so that the crepe can be perfectly stretched out to the very known edges of its existence. The chef is in charge, and so are we. These questions, we're in charge of our lives when we ask these yummy, delicious questions. So what if they tilt our world a little bit? So what if they tilt our world a little bit this way? We're out there reaching to the very edges of our imagination with big questions like this. Rainier Maria Rilke says in his book, Letters to a Young Poet, you need to ask the big questions. Questions that aren't easy to answer. Questions that you have to use more than your mind to discern. Questions that you have to feel your way into. One of the ways we feel our way into big questions is with Science shows that when we hum with me please, when we we're actively connecting our right and our left sides of our brain. We're actively connecting both sides of our brain, and we're engaging and we're putting ourselves in a genuine state of curiosity, a genuine state of wonder. I wonder how I can welcome more love in my life. Would you say that with me, please? I wonder how I can welcome more love in my life. Did you feel anything? You might have felt a little bit, or you might have felt nothing at all. And that's okay. Just keep asking the question. Now, these questions are very personal. But not only do big questions show up in our lives to invite us to the edges of our known universe and beyond, but they're also reflected in countries and in the world. Think about our country. Right after World War II, when some of you were born, we were in a time of peace. But then after a while, we engaged in the Korean War. And then we were in a time of peace. And then we engaged in the Vietnam War. And then we were in an extended time of peace. And then we engaged in the Gulf War. So as a country, we see ourselves collectively expanding and contracting. And here's what I know. That when we engage in the questions for ourselves, because we're part of the collective, we are engaging in the questions for our species, for the human race. So are you willing to engage for the sake of humanity? Here's the big question. Can our species live in expanding ways of peace and prosperity? Can we? I wonder what that would be like. Are we willing to do it? It's such a big question that we know it requires the activity of God. So we know with big questions like this one about our species and these others about love, about happiness, and about going all the way, feeling good more and more of the time, they require prayer. So as we come into a time of meditation, let's sing about prayer. Let's sing about prayer and meditation, we ease any tension we find in our bodies. We soften the edges of our mind. And we see that the walls of our heart are permeable. We flow easily between the known and the unknown. For here in meditation, we are surrounded by the ideas of God. Ideas of love and light, full expression, wisdom and power, faith and strength. It is here in meditation that we emerge into an ever expanding universe. Breathing in and breathing out. Feeling the movement of space as if we feel the breeze on the beach. Caressing us, carrying us into a time of sacred and holy silence.